Hey y'all, this is Richard. Today is Monday, October 12th, 2020, and I wanted to make a quick response video to the live stream that Jarhead6 had this afternoon. And the subject of his stream was talking about fear of COVID-19 and about a reaction that he witnessed. And he's absolutely right. Fear does not come from any place good. Fear does not come from God. Fear comes from the enemy, from a lack of illumination. Fear is an unreasonable dread, and that could be because of not understanding something, but it also could be of not understanding something that is really actually dangerous. That's still fear. That's not the same as the fear that is talked about with the fear of the Lord. That's talking about respect. Respect for a disparity of force. That is a healthy respect. If we were exposed to the direct glory and holiness of God, it would incinerate us. Moses was hid in the rocks and covered up by God as God passed by, and it still struck him blind. Saul, on his way to persecute Christians, had a vision of Jesus and in his full glory, and it struck him blind, and it was just a vision. So, that's a very desperate amount of force, and it warrants respect. And so when it comes to COVID-19, not everybody who wears a mask is afraid. I live in a pretty conservative place, and there's a lot of people who equate wearing a mask with being afraid. And that's simply not true. There are people who do. That definitely exists. Just like there are people who carry a firearm because they are afraid. And, then there's also people who carry a firearm because they have a healthy respect for the amount of force carried by criminals. And, that's the big reason why we have it enumerated in the Second Amendment is because it's not relevant whether that criminal is up the street or in your state capital or in your national capital or in an enemy nation. It's still criminal activity, and you have an inherent human right from God to protect yourself from it. And we don't carry firearms because we're afraid of those things. We carry those firearms because they are a precaution, just like the mask is a precaution. So, I'm work in the medical field, and I have my 70th COVID patient today. And at last check, my antibody tests are still coming back negative. So apparently what I'm doing to protect myself for these past 6 months is working. And part of that process is a mask. But a mask is only a small part of that process. It is coupled with, when I have a patient that might have it, I'm wearing eye protection. I'm wearing gown. I'm actually wearing 2 pairs of gloves because I have mechanical hazards that can tear a single layer of gloves. I'm washing my hands in a certain way. I'm cleaning my equipment and my room a very certain way, and in a certain order. So there is, a respect for it, not because I'm afraid of it, but because I know that if I get it, it wouldn't take much for me to spread it. So I'm not afraid of what it can do to me. I'm afraid of what it can do to other people who may not be able to handle it. Um, you know, and this is just anecdotal, but most of the patients I've had that have had COVID-19 really hadn't been all that terribly sick, but a few of them have. And the sickest ones were not old people. The sickest ones were people that are actually slightly younger than me. So I, there could be a few different explanations for that. It could be that the people who are really, really sick, who are in older categories, may be going directly to the hospital. I don't know. That could be happening. But, it's, you don't necessarily know if you're one of the people who are going to be badly affected by it or have delayed effects from it. You had a mild case or even asymptomatic, and you start having other issues. So, there is an element of the unknown there that our government, and especially our media, communicating after the fact on what our government says, there's a lot of miscommunication, and I think there's been some outright lying when it comes through those channels. So, I just I don't see what the issue is if a person wants to protect themselves. If you're gonna automatically assume that they're afraid because they're taking precautions, like a lot of people around my local area are doing and are very vocal about. If you assume that people doing it are doing it because they're afraid, then that's not right. That's actually prejudice, and it's not cool. So there's a healthy respect for it, and when there's an unknown factor, yeah, you might need to take a little bit more precautions just to be on the safe side. There's nothing wrong with doing that out of an abundance of caution. So, but at the same time, while I believe people should wear a mask and should do all those other things, when they're at increased risk, I'm also against mask mandates from the government. I don't believe that the government should be forcing the public into mask mandates. However, at the same time, if the government in your area, in your state, has the power to issue business licenses and building occupancy permits, then you have maybe unintentionally, but you've let them have the authority to tell your business your employees must wear a mask or a face shield or things of that nature. Your business must do this. Your business must do that, and that's a side effect of giving the government the authority to do things like this. And so, yeah, that's an unfortunate side effect. And that these COVID-19 restrictions are a consequence of that. So, the government does have the right to tell businesses you must, take these safety precautions because of OSHA, because of, your state health code, your and depending upon your state, how much local authority they're allowed to have. So that's unfortunate, but it is the way it is. Outside of a business where they have authority to make safety restrictions, governments shouldn't be making public mass mandates for everybody, because it's down to the individual citizen on how they feel they ought to protect themselves. And if they're wrong, then they're the ones that have the consequences. However, I think I can speak for a lot of other people in healthcare when I say you're not the only one who has the consequences. As long as this keeps going on, I'm going to have to keep wearing a mask almost all day, if not all day at work, if I don't get a break, which that happens sometimes. And, there's, people like me have to absorb the fallout of other people's bad decisions when it comes to this. A lot of the ones who have been pretty sick, this is anecdotally, at least in patients that I've had, a lot of the ones that have been pretty sick admittedly weren't even trying to protect themselves. They weren't, it's the opposite of fear. It still comes from either ignorance or from just plain not caring. But the outcome's the same. We're having to reap those consequences of other people's actions. So, when you decide to do nothing to protect yourself, think about that. You aren't the only one who faces the consequences when it comes to this. So, anyways, I've rambled on way longer than I normally would do a video, almost 3 times longer. And I apologize for making it this long, but anyways, I guess I better go. I need to get home.